I tell you, doing YouTube is very much like, in many ways, it reminded me of my own life and my own journey. Because at one time in my life, about maybe the first 19 years of working with a mission agency that I was working with, it seems like to me, I look around at people who were having issues along the way, and I thought, why am I not like them? Everything was happening. I touched things and they became successful, and life was good. But I had no idea. I was not prepared for the reality that the sayings that shit happens. And things were moving along very well until some of the things I should have paid attention to in the beginning. And that's one of the things that I realized. There are times when little things indicate trouble ahead. And so I came home, and my first wife, was having some issues, and she's an incredibly positive person, also very happy, fun. Yeah, I enjoy being around her all the time because of that. And I noticed that there were things that in me, I had to go through the training that I received when I saw of what I saw with my grandparents. Because when I was growing up, I noticed that the way they deal with their differences, my grandmother and grandfather, was treating each other with what they call the silent treatment. And I remember at times when I sit in the middle of that, because my grandparents and I were there, and in the evening we do devotion, and usually my grandfather would say the prayer, but my grandmother would sing the song and start the song, and then a conversation would happen, and then my grandmother never talked directly to my grandfather, even though he was right there in front of her, but she would tell me what to tell him. And it began to ingrain in me the way to do something to correct was treating with silent. But I remember the breakthrough I experienced one night. Just one night that it happened that came alive for me, because I noticed that we were heading for another week of long silent treatment. And that night in particular, I got up out of the devotion time and I went to a dark place. And I remember whispering this to God. I said, God, if you're there, because I had no idea who he was at that time. But I whispered, I said, if you're there, please help my grandparents talk to each other. And lo and behold, the next day I came and they were talking to each other. And I thought, wow, that worked. So later on in life, when I got married to my first wife, I realized that this was now becoming my pattern. Every time I have something I don't like or something came up that surprised me, I would withdraw and treat it with silent. And my wife would always say to me, are you going to treat me with that silent treatment again? Because she knew that that was my way of escaping and not having to give input. But I was afraid on the other side too, that if I don't, then I would say something wrong, which I usually do as well. I not only withdraw, but something happened and it triggers something and I blurted out everything. And there it is out there. And so trying to find the medium for that. And when my ex and I finally had a chance to separate, the first thing that came to my mind was, where is a safe place I can go? And I thought, this was in Tampa, Florida. And I thought the best place I can go is to go back to the island, go back to where I grew up, where this treatment was introduced to me. and I thought to myself, well, the next best thing is to go to where my older sister, who's 6 years older than me, in California. They live in San Diego, her and her husband and her children. And I thought, if I can just get there, I'll be a safe place for me to be, especially during the heat of all of these different things happening. So I said to my ex at that time, I said, I'm leaving, which was a big mistake I made. One of the biggest mistake I made was doing what I just told you I did. So I got in my car and drove to California. And when I got there, my sister, who's like a mother to me, because she's always taking care of all of us siblings. There are 11 of us, so she served as a anyway. So I stayed there for a month, and then I came back because my oldest boy at that time was graduating from high school. And I came back with this empty feeling. You feel empty, you feel restless, you feel tired, but you're not tired. You're aching inside because you wish things could go well for him. It was his happy time that he has graduated from high school, and mom and dad are in this limbo. And so, you go along just to go along, but your heart is somewhere broken into hundreds of pieces. And so my whole idea at that time was just to go past that. Then my wife said, I'm leaving for Hawaii, and I'm divorcing you. So we went through that process. I flew to Hawaii, and I realized that when time comes for heart issues, be careful on who you look for solutions to help you, because that's the time everybody's looking for someone that they can become an expert to. And I did that, and it was a big mistake for me. And but when I went to Hawaii, it was another whole ordeal where our place that we started our whole company out of Hawaii, that we went to the First Hawaiian Bank to open an account for the first time as a company. And we went there to finalize paperwork with attorneys and all that. So it was a bittersweet season and time. And during the time I was in Hawaii, I went down to the beach, and the beach was not even feel the same. It felt like you might as well just put me in a desert somewhere, or put me in an island somewhere and just leave me there for my misery. And all of that was part of, we finalized the divorce, and I came back to Tampa, where my wife and I were living, and for a couple of months we were there, and we were having good jobs, good things were beginning to work out. And I planned for my 3 boys to be in Las Vegas so we can host them for Thanksgiving and allow my ex time in Hawaii to just restore and heal up. So while one day we were sitting in a restaurant talking and eating, and after a break, the phone rang, and I noticed that it was my son's phone. So I picked up the phone, and his voice came through, cracking and breaking, and I knew something was wrong. So I just asked him, I said, son, what's going on? And he said, my brother is dead. I can't tell you what that meant. I stood up out of the restaurant and walk around the whole complex, and I heard myself saying these words to my son: please tell me this is just a dream. Please tell me this is a dream. And he said, Dad, no, I was in the hospital seeing my brother dead. Oh my God, my heart broke into so many pieces. I came back. We paid the bill. We went home, and that night I couldn't sleep. I turned every which way, hoping that I can turn to some place where I can find comfort. There was none. It was just an incredible pain. And the next day I booked a flight to go to Hawaii, and when I was going on the flight and the plane, it seems like, I was sitting next to somebody who was talking angry at somebody, and I thought, I wish I could have your problem, because what I have is I'm going home as a dad to bury my son, 19 years old. He's just slowly coming to the prime of his life. And I went through this whole ordeal in the airplane. As we were heading to Hawaii, I'm thinking, I will never have a chance to hear him and his wife and his children come home, and he brags about the things that he was doing. It was just like saying goodbye to all these little dreams that are now showing up to torment, because they were not real. They were part of that. And in the process of that, arriving in Kona, going to see him in the morgue, was just, I can't tell you, that moment in life, nothing, I can give up nothing to not experience that. But to have the reality of now I'm coming home to bury my dream going to the ground. And it was one of those things, but it was during those painful moments I reflect on my foolishness and the things that I did wrong in causing his mom and I to divorce, and the things I could have given back to just have the restoration of our family and our children back in the fold. I would be willing to do anything, but it's too late. That's the nature of life, is that we have an opportunity here once and for all where we can make decisions and choices that will either serve us for the good and others, or opportunities that we can make a choice to break and face the pain of broken relationship. So I'll tell you what, one of the things that helped me in that one little thing that became a nugget of hope that was shifting in my heart. And that was the question that I had, because I decided I was not going to be mad. I was not going to be bitter against God or against anybody. I said these words to myself as I was alone. I said, I will not question the whys, because I know it will be like a vicious cycle that will take me down. But I said these words. I said, God, if you're here, which I know He is, I will leave all of my whys until I come to where my son is with you. And I will ask my whys then. I'll hold my whys, and I promise I will not. So it slowly began to become a piece of knowledge that helped my own broken heart to be healed again. And healing is a relative term, because it came in little sequence. Because how can you be completely healed when you are putting your own boy, 19-year-old boy, to the ground, and you're saying your final goodbye? That was part of an incredible pain. Now, it not only happened once, it happened twice. And I have a second son that passed away, who had a heart to restore the dignity and the integrity of my family name. That's what I found out when I was in Hawaii for his final hours. And I was told that he made a pledge that he was going to restore our dignity as a family, and he's the one who carried the name. I can't tell you, it's like a double-edged sword that was going through my heart, but it's part of life that help prepare you for where you're going to be ultimately. For me, that was my preparation for where I am and where I have been in the last 4 years, to appreciate that it's not just a loss of my sons. I had lost my legs. I have lost my heart's ability to heal and restore. I went through all of the solutions that they offered and trusted and all of that, arriving at a place where I ended up as a congestive heart failure. And I remember asking the doctor the question, what can you show me a demonstration of what a congestive heart failure is? And she said, there's the artery that goes into your heart. Here's what happened. They cannot connect to each other. And I said, so how am I living? She said, we'll treat you with some medication and hope that these ends of your arteries will slowly but surely come together. And I, what do you say? So I trusted her, and she treated me. And it was about a year later when I went back to one of her colleagues who was doing the appointment for me. And I went in, they did all the tests, the blood tests, the artery and the heart and all that. And then after that, I went in to see the doctor, and he said to me, we don't need to see you anymore. I said, why? He said, because your heart is normal. Normal in a sense that it's connecting, the arteries have in some way, one way or the other, have reconnected. And it's slower because the normal rate in which the blood pumps in the heart is 60, whatever the rate is that they measure it with. Your heart is 32%. When you were starting your treatment, your heart was 32%, which is half, which means that you can get tired very easily, which means if something happened to you and the heart is not pumping enough blood, because blood is the source of life for your body. If the heart is not pumping enough, that means you're going to have to sacrifice, the body's going to have to sacrifice one for the other. But here on, it was up to 42%. So it's slowly going up. And the doctor said, we consider this rate of increase from 32 to 42% normal. And therefore, we don't need to see you anymore because you're normal. So that was my preparation for what happens now. But I tell you, if I had this situation when I was going through the season of burying my 2 sons, I have never felt pain like those days. The pain of I lost the best friend I had in my life, my ex, and now I'm losing 2 boys, which represent to me as a Pacific Island, my children and heir. And now life will teach you and bring some understanding, you'll bring some knowledge of that. And the thing that stayed the same for me, is I have always leaned back to a moment in my own life where I reflect back and I say, God, you're here, you're real. And when the doctor said to me, you're congestive heart failure, I remember having to go away from the doctor's office. And I remember whispering a prayer to God. I said, that when I had a hard time putting my heart together when my boys were gone, I now have the opportunity to bring my heart back to you and trust you that you can heal my heart and bring life back to my body. For the last 4.5 years, I have seen and have experienced a daily renewal, daily recovery of my health. here I am. I'm a double amputee. I do dialysis at night. And yet, at the same time, I'm talking without having any problem and remembering issues and remembering circumstances that took place. So God is faithful. At the same time, we need to open our hearts to be able to receive grace, because grace is not what you deserve, but something that is given to you as a gift. I am absolutely believe that why I am alive today is because of the grace of God and my love for Jesus. Thank Him for that. At the same time, I still have to deal with people. I still have to face people. I still have to face my issues with my wife and having to deal with forgiving, letting go, and all of that, to a place where you can now live in existence and bringing wholeness and healing to people. I have my ex that I had a hard time with trying to reconcile, and all the things. I have been thinking a lot about, I was going through this as a father, but a mother who loved these kids and have kept them, I am amazed. I am absolutely amazed at the grace God has given to her, because she's not bitter. She's not all of that. She's thankful, and she is doing extremely well. By the way, this is Susan Leao. If you find any value in this, my hope is that this will be an encouragement to you, that the stories themselves are not meant to be your story, but they're meant to be an encouragement to you, that if God can do this for us and help us walk through the most broken time of our lives to the most tested in our health, and still hold our head up and say, God is faithful, you can do the same thing. And by the way, I'm looking for your help, because I have a challenge for the month of March to reach 300 subscribers. And if you can subscribe to my video, that way you can always be in the loop when I produce new videos. I send it to you through YouTube, and that you can participate with us. We have some projects that we're slowly developing on the channel to help and to see if we can be of help to expand our own horizon to you and reach out to you to make your life better. So this is Susan Leao. Please share, like, and subscribe to this video. Thank you, and God bless. Bye-bye for now.